The void between stars is not silent. It thrums with the latent energy of creation, a canvas of perpetual twilight upon which civilizations write their brief, glittering stories. Around the lush, blue-green world of Lyra Prime, that story was about to end. This is the Lyran Concordance. A peaceful, elegant species, slender as saplings with skin of polished jade and eyes like liquid silver. They built not with hardened alloys, but with grown crystal and harmonized light. Their cities shimmered like fallen constellations on the planet's surface. They were philosophers, artists, ecologists, a gentle footnote in the galactic community. Respected, even beloved, for their symphonies that could calm solar flares and their gardens that curated scents from 1,000 worlds. And they were hopelessly, utterly surrounded. The blockade fleet hung in high orbit, a jagged scar against the stars. The Vex. A conglomerate species, a ruthless hierarchy where physical might and corrosive biotechnology defined law. Their ships were asymmetrical horrors, like cancerous growths of chitin and black iron, leaking faint trails of ochre gas. They did not hail. They did not demand surrender. They simply arrived, severed all communications, and began methodically dismantling Lyran orbital infrastructure with precise, malicious beams of plasma. On the surface, First Bloom, the eldest of the Concordance, watched from the grand spire. Her frond-like fingers trembled against the crystalline viewing pane. "They do not want our world," she whispered, her voice a melody of despair. "They want our silence. Our compliance. They will strip our culture for parts and use our bodies as biological substrates for their improvements." Her aide, a younger Lyran named Solon, emitted a pulse of fearful blue from his bioluminescent markings. "The Galactic Commons, they have not answered our pleas." "The Commons deliberates," First Bloom said, the harmonics of her voice souring with bitterness. "The Vex fleet is within their acceptable contingent force for a trade dispute. Our suffering is a bureaucratic ambiguity." Below, the first Vex drop pod streaked through the atmosphere, trailing fire and fear. The Lyrans had no weapons. Their greatest defense was a resonant field that could induce peaceful slumber, a tool useless against Vex neural chemistry. Solon looked at the stars, not with hope, but with the sorrow of one who already mourns. "Then we are lost. The stories were wrong. There are no guardians in the dark. No one comes." First Bloom's silver eyes hardened. She turned from the window, her robes of woven light swirling. "There is one signature we have not sent. One frequency, for the most dire of circumstances, given to us by an ambassador who said his people were obligated. A call to a world not listed in the Commons registry. Deathworld." Solon's markings flashed red in alarm. "The human protocol?" "First Bloom, that is myth. A story to frighten spores. A world of uncontrolled violence and impossible geology. If they even exist, inviting them here could be worse than the Vex. What choice remains?" First Bloom's voice was a reed in a hurricane, thin but unbreaking. "To fade away beautifully? Or to risk a storm? Open the secured vault. Bring me the resonance key." The key was a simple dense object of tungsten and etched data crystal, human-made. It fit into their comms array with a terrifying, solid clunk. As First Bloom input the final sequence, a simple repeating audio pattern of 3 short pulses, 3 long, 3 short, she felt a profound taboo. She was calling a monster. Perhaps the monster. Into the silent, screaming void, from a world surrounded by darkness, went a single repeating signal. SOS. Aboard the Vex command ship, the Carrion's Will, Overseer Vrax observed the pacification. His multifaceted eyes, behind a reinforced visor, reflected the glowing points of Lyran cities. He was a mass of corded muscle and grafted armor plating, his breath a humid rasp through filter gills. "Primary cultural nodes are subdued," droned a subordinate, its voice a clicking grate. "Biological harvesting teams deploy in 13 cycles. Minimal resistance. Their harmonic weapons are aesthetically irritating, but ineffective." Vrax emitted a low rumble of satisfaction. Lyra Prime was perfect. Rich in biological resources, strategically located, and defended by a species too soft to even comprehend true conflict. The Commons would file a motion. It would be debated. By the time any sanctions were considered, Lyra would be a Vex hive world, its native song extinguished, its people repurposed. It was efficient. It was natural. The strong consume the weak. A low-power transmission just pulsed from the planet's surface, another subordinate reported. It was directed into deep space, not towards commons channels. Frequency is archaic. Modulation is primitive. Vrax dismissed it with a twitch of a claw. A final prayer to their forgotten gods. Ignore it. Increase the bombardment on their crystalline archives. Erase their history. It is a mercy, they will not miss what they cannot remember. The Vex operation continued with chilling precision. On the ground, Lyrans were herded by bipedal drones, their gentle forms prodded with shock prods. The air, once scented with pollens and harmony, grew thick with the acrid smell of charged ions and Vex pheromones. The Lyrans wept with soft, chiming cries, their light marks dimmed in defeat. They had hoped for a galaxy of reason. They had found a galaxy of teeth. Solon helped first bloom to a sheltered grove, their last sanctuary. The ancient trees, which normally glowed with internal light, were dark. The signal is gone. Solon said, his voice hollow. There is nothing. Not even an acknowledgement. We have called out to a void within the void. First Bloom leaned against a cold crystal trunk. She had gambled her people's soul on a fairy tale. The guilt was a physical weight. Perhaps it is better this way. Perhaps some stories should remain untested. In orbit, Vrax received a new report. A long-range sensor ping. Something had just translated from FDL at the system's edge, well beyond the blockade perimeter. A single contact. Identification. Vrax growled. Signature is small. A civilian vessel, perhaps. Or a commons observer probe. It is holding position. Vrax sneered. A witness. Good. Let them watch. It will make our report to the commons more persuasive. Dispatch a single interceptor to warn it off. Destroy it if it approaches. The Vex interceptor, a sleek predatory thing shaped like a barbed stingray, peeled away from the blockade and shot towards the system's edge. This was routine. This was fun. Aboard the small unassuming vessel at the edge of the Lyran system, Captain Eris Thorne of the Human Survey Corps sipped Tari coffee and scowled at his scanner. Well, that's not good. His ship, the Curiosity's Price, was a sturdy, boxy workhorse, scarred by micrometeorites and dusted with the weird pollen of a dozen worlds. On the main viewer, the tactical overlay showed Lyra Prime, a beautiful gem, encircled by a swarm of angry red icons. Vex signatures, his science officer, Kayla, confirmed, her fingers dancing over the console. Full blockade pattern. They're already on the ground. Lyrans are non-combatants, Cap. This is a slaughter. Eris was a man carved from the bedrock of a high-gravity world. His hair was cropped short, gray at the temples. An old scar traced a pale line from his eyebrow to his jaw. His eyes, the color of a terrestrial sky, held no panic, only a cold, calculating focus. They got the signal out. That old SOS beacon we gifted them. Weak, but it's them. We're one ship, Eris, Kayla said softly. A surveyor. We have a point defense laser and some strongly worded diplomatic protocols. Eris didn't smile. He activated the comms. Curiosity's Price to all available Terran Sovereign Fleet elements in the Sirius Reach and beyond. Priority Omega. Authenticate Thorn 79er. Lyra Prime is under hostile occupation by Vex forces. Lyrans are a protected, pacifist species. The Vex are in violation of the Sentinel Accord. I am transmitting tactical data. Requesting immediate response. The call has been made. He sent the burst transmission, a tight beam shout into the human FDL comm network. Then he turned to the helm. Plot a micro-jump. Get us to high orbit over Lyra Prime. Kayla stared at him. That's the middle of their fleet. They sent the signal, Kayla, Eris said, his voice low and steady. The old promise. If you call, we will come. We're not here to win the fight. We're here to show them someone came. Now do it. The Curiosity's Price's engines whined, space folded, and the small ship vanished. A moment later, it re-emerged with a flash of stressed reality, not at the edge, but right in the middle of the Vex formation. Alarms blared on the Vex command ship. The contact. It's inside the perimeter. It just appeared. Vrax surged to his feet. What? How? Target it. Blow it out of the sky. The Curiosity's price was already taking fire. Glancing blows from plasma bolts shook the ship. Eris held the vessel steady. He opened a broad-channel comm, audio only. Vex Fleet. This is Captain Eris Thorn of the Terran Sovereign Fleet. You are in violation of the Sentinel Accord, Article 1, regarding the protection of non-militant civilizations. Cease hostilities immediately and withdraw from Lyran space. You have 1 standard minute to comply. The message echoed across the Vex Fleet. On the bridge of the Carrion's Will, there was a moment of stunned silence, followed by a chorus of harsh, clicking laughter. Vrax chuckled, a sound like grinding stones. Terran? Deathworlders. 1 minute? This is the savior the Lyrans called. He gestured to the comms officer. Open a channel. Video. The link established. Vrax's grotesque, armored visage filled Eris's screen. Eris's calm, weathered face appeared on Vrax's. Little creature, Vrax hissed. You are in a survey pod. You are surrounded by a Vex war fleet. Your minute is a joke. Your accord is irrelevant. You will power down, or you'll be used for target practice. Eris didn't flinch. He looked directly into Vrax's multifaceted eyes. You have 55 seconds. The warning stands. Or what? Vrax sneered. Eris's lips thinned into a line that was not quite a smile. Or you get to meet the rest of the fleet. He cut the channel. Vrax snarled. Arrogant prey. All batteries, focus fire. Annihilate that ship. I want his atoms scattered. Concentrated streams of plasma lanced towards the small, defiant human vessel. The Curiosity's Price's shields flared brilliant white, then failed. The hull began to glow cherry red. Inside, consoles sparked. Kayla shouted a damage report. Eris held the ship steady, watching the chrono. 30 seconds. On Lyra Prime, First Bloom and Solon, through a cracked crystal monitor linked to an orbital sensor, saw the tiny human ship appear amidst the monstrous Vex fleet. They saw it hold position. They heard the exchange. He is alone, Solon wept, a sound like shattering glass. He came alone to die with us. It is a beautiful, terrible gesture. First Bloom felt her heart break. The humans had answered. With a single, suicidal ship. It was both the most heroic and most tragic thing she had ever witnessed. The galaxy was not kind. It merely offered different shades of extinction. In orbit, the Curiosity's Price was dying. A wing was sheared off. Atmosphere vented in a frozen plume. 10 seconds, Eris coughed, smoke filling the bridge. Vrax watched, savoring the destruction. See, little Deathworlder? This is strength. This is power. Your story ends here. Eris looked up, through the burning viewport, past the Vex ships, to the stars. No, he whispered. It doesn't. At the 0-second mark, space tore open. Not a single rift. Not 2. But dozens. Across the high orbital plane in low orbit, even directly between Vex ships, reality screamed and bled light. The Vex sensors overloaded. The very fabric of the local spacetime groaned in protest at the violent, simultaneous translation of so much mass. From the wounds in reality, they emerged. Not graceful vessels. Not elegant crystals or biological horrors. These were warships. They were all hard angles, slab-sided armor, and brutalist geometry. Gray steel turned black by the starlight. They lacked aesthetic. They proclaimed only one purpose: uncompromising, overwhelming force. The lead ship was a Leviathan-class dreadnought, the TFS Okinawa. It was a mountain range-given flight, its flanks studded with missile batteries, railgun turrets, and the ominous faceted bulbs of directed energy weapons. To its port and starboard flanked cruisers, sleek and deadly as sharks. Behind them, carriers disgorging clouds of single-pilot fighters that moved with insect-like agility and predatory intent. They did not hail. They did not announce their arrival with fanfare. Their emergence was the announcement. One moment, the Vex surrounded a planet and a dying survey ship. The next, they were surrounded. On the Vex command ship, the clicking laughter died in 100 throats. The tactical display, which a moment ago showed overwhelming Vex dominance, was now a solid wall of hostile Crimson icons. They were outnumbered, outmassed, outgunned. The scale of the reversal was vertigo-inducing. What is this? Vrax roared, his claws digging into the command console. Identify them. Signatures confirmed. Terran Sovereign Fleet. Battle Group Kepri. Capital ships, carriers, heavy cruisers, Overseer, they have spinal-mounted planet breakers on the Dreadnought. A new voice filled the Vex comms, and every Lyran receiver, and the bridge of the battered Curiosity's price. It was a woman's voice. Calm. Clean. Devoid of any emotion but absolute authority. It was the voice of a glacier deciding the fate of a landscape. Vex forces. This is Admiral Lyena Rostova of the Terran Sovereign Fleet, commanding Battle Group Kepri. You have assaulted a Sentinel-protected species. You have fired upon a Terran vessel. Power down all weapons and engines. Submit your command codes for boarding and inspection. You have 10 seconds to comply. The same ultimatum. Echoed back with the weight of an asteroid belt behind it. Panic erupted on the Vex bridge. Vrax felt a primal, unfamiliar emotion, terror. But it was quickly subsumed by rage. He was Vex. He was a conqueror. This was a bluff. It had to be. All ships, he broadcast. Target the lead human dreadnought. Concentrate fire. Break their line. It was the worst decision of his life. The Vex fleet, trained for bullying pacifists, swiveled their weapons towards the Okinawa. They fired. A storm of plasma converged on the dreadnought's forward shields. They flared, and held. The brilliant aurora of dissipated energy washed over the human ship's prow, illuminating the faded painted insignia of a Terran raptor clutching a Stars and Stripes shield. The voice of Admiral Rostova came again, a single cool word. Counter. The space between the fleets ceased to exist. It became a solid wall of light and death. Human railgun slugs, propelled to a fraction of light speed, struck first. They didn't explode. They simply punched through Vex shields and hulls like paper, exiting the other side in geysers of molten debris, their kinetic energy ripping ships apart from the inside. Then came the missiles, swarming, intelligent, weaving through point defense fire to detonate against engines and weapons arrays. Finally, the lancing beams of particle cannons sliced across the darkness, severing ships cleanly in two. It was not a battle. It was a systemic dismantling. A clinical, horrifying display of applied violence. The Vex, for all their bio-horror and bluster, fought with the logic of predators, intimidation, then dismemberment. The humans fought with the logic of a force of nature, total, instantaneous, and indiscriminate annihilation of the threat. On Lyra Prime, the Lyrans saw the sky light up with silent, terrible fireflowers. The gentle, chiming people watched, awestruck and horrified, as their oppressors were methodically erased from the heavens. They saw a Vex cruiser, a vessel that had loomed over their world like a dagger for days, split in two by a single blinding white beam. They saw another vanish in an expanding sphere of gas and fragments. Solin trembled. They are destroying them. All of them. First Bloom could not speak. The raw, awesome power on display was anathema to her soul. It was terrifying. And yet, it was being wielded for them. Aboard the Carrion's Will, Vrax staggered as his ship rocked from a near miss. The bridge was filled with smoke, screams, and the staccato of catastrophic damage reports. He saw ship after ship on his tactical display wink out. His fleet, his mighty fleet, was being reduced to scrap in minutes. Return fire. Fight back, he screamed. A junior officer, its carapace cracked, turned with dimming eyes. Overseer, our weapons, they do nothing. Their shields, their armor, it is too strong. We are insects stinging a mountainside. The truth crashed down upon Vrax. He had not been fighting warriors. He had been provoking an extinction-level event. The humans' initial warning hadn't been bravado. It had been a final, merciful chance he had been too blind to see. A new specific transmission pierced the chaos, directed solely at the Vex command ship. It was Captain Eris Thorne's voice, strained but clear over the sound of his ship's groaning hull. Vrax. It's over. Surrender. Or watch every single one of your people die. Your choice. On the viewer, Vrax saw a human heavy cruiser turn its broadside towards a fleeing Vex transport, a non-combatant vessel. The cruiser's guns tracked it, then held fire. They were giving him a chance. A final chance. The fight drained from Vrax. The Overlord collapsed into his command throne, the biomechanical interface groaning under his weight. The clicks that left his mandibles were not orders, but a broken, submissive rattle. All Vex units. This is Overseer Vrax. Stand down. Power down all systems. Submit to Terran authority. The order went out. Across the battlefield, the remaining Vex ships, broken and bleeding, went dark. Their weapon ports closed. Their engine flares died. The human bombardment ceased instantly. The sudden silence was more deafening than the thunder of guns. In the aftermath, the true nature of the humans revealed itself, and the galaxy's perspective shifted. The Terran fleet did not celebrate. It moved with calm, terrifying efficiency. Tractor beams lanced out, securing the drifting hulks of Vex warships. Boarding craft, like metal wasps, streamed towards the captive vessels. On the surface, larger dropships, not shaped like weapons, but like heavy lifters, descended towards Lyran cities. First Bloom and Solon, surrounded by their fearful people, watched as the first human lander settled onto the crushed crystal plaza before the Grand Spire. The ramp descended with a hydraulic hiss. They expected monsters. Demons clad in the same gray steel as their warships, wreathed in the smoke of conquest. Instead, the first human to step out was a woman. She wore a form-fitting environment suit, but her helmet was off, tucked under her arm. Admiral Lyena Rostova. Her hair was black, shot with silver, tied in a severe bun. Her face was lined with command and care, but her eyes were the same as Captain Thorne's. A calm, terrestrial blue. She was followed not by soldiers with raised guns, but by teams carrying large crates marked with green crosses. Rostova walked directly towards First Bloom. The Lyran guards trembled but did not move. The Admiral stopped a respectful distance away and offered a gesture, a closed fist over her heart, then extended, palm open and empty. First Bloom, Rostova said, her voice now soft, devoid of the battle channel's steel. I am Admiral Rostova. On behalf of the Terran Sovereign, I apologize for our delay. The Sentinel Accord is sworn. We are here to help. First Bloom, her silver eyes wide, managed to mimic the gesture awkwardly. You destroyed them. We neutralized a threat to a protected species, Rostova corrected gently. The Vex who surrendered will be processed according to interstellar law, but they are no longer your concern. She turned, gesturing to the teams now. Deploying from the landers. My medical teams are setting up field hospitals. Our engineers are ready to assist with restoring power, water, and environmental systems. Do your people have immediate needs? Shelter? Nutrition? Solon could only stare. The beings who had just unleashed apocalyptic fury from the heavens were now asking about their nutrition. The contrast was brain-breaking. Across Lyran cities, the same scene played out. Human soldiers, Marines in powered armor that made them look like walking fortresses, secured areas, but their weapons remained pointed at the ground. They moved Vex prisoners with firm, professional efficiency, but without cruelty. And everywhere, the humans in simpler uniforms, the doctors, engineers, and counselors, went to work. A human medic, a young man with kind eyes, knelt beside a wounded Lyran, their leg crushed by falling crystal. The medic's hands, which could doubtless wield terrible weapons, were instead deft and gentle as he applied a medgel and a support splint. He spoke in soft, reassuring tones, a translation device on his collar chirping out melodic Lyran phrases. A group of human engineers, using heavy machinery that seemed to move with a life of its own, worked to clear a collapsed harmonic resonator tower. They coordinated with Lyran technicians, listening intently to their explanations of the crystal lattice technology, adapting their tools rather than forcing their own methods. Captain Eris Thorne, his arm in a sling, a burn on his cheek, walked with a limp beside First Bloom through a healing grove. He listened as she spoke of her people's fear, their despair. You must think us weak, First Bloom said, her light pulses dim with shame. We could not fight. We could only sing. Eris stopped. He looked at the grove, at the slowly rekindling light within the trees. He took a deep breath, and when he spoke, His voice was thick with an emotion the Lyrans did not yet understand. First bloom, he said. My world, Earth, is what you would call a death world. It's true. Our gravity is stronger. Our weather is violence. Our biology is a relentless arms race of poison, tooth, and claw. We evolved in the crucible. We had to be hard. We had to be strong. We had to learn to fight, or we would not exist. He knelt carefully and touched the soft, glowing moss at the base of a tree. But we also learned to build shelters against the storm, to heal the wounds, to plant seeds in scorched earth. The strength to protect, he looked up at her, his blue eyes fierce and bright, is meaningless without the compassion to know what to protect. You have something my people have fought wars and crossed stars to find. Beauty, harmony, peace. These are not weaknesses. They are the rarest, most precious things in this universe. We have the fists. You have the heart. The Sentinel Accord isn't about domination. It's a promise. A promise that the fists will always stand guard, so the heart can keep beating. On the Vex command ship, now under Terran guard, Overseer Vrax was being processed. He was stripped of his armor, his biografts deactivated. He sat in a bare holding cell, awaiting transfer. A human marine stood guard outside, immobile as a statue. A human officer, a psychologist with the rank of major, entered. He carried a data slate, not a weapon. He sat across from Vrax. Why? Vrax grated out, his spirit broken. Why did you come? The Lyrans have nothing you need. They are fuel. They are resource. The major regarded him for a long moment. What is the gravitational constant of your homeworld, Overseer? The question was so nonsensical Vrax could only click in confusion. What? Standard gravity. What is it? 0.87 Galactic Standard, Vrax muttered. Ours is 1.1, the major said quietly. Our atmosphere is more volatile. Our axial tilt causes extreme seasonal shifts. Predators that could swallow a Vex whole once hunted our ancestors. We clawed our way to the top of a pile that was constantly trying to kill us. Do you know what that does to a species? Vrax was silent. It gives you two paths, the major continued. You can look at the universe and see only threats. Only resources. Only a bigger, darker jungle where you must be the hardest, cruelest predator to survive. That is one path. He leaned forward. Or you can look at that universe, see all the unimaginable danger, and decide that no other innocent should ever have to feel that fear. That no gentle species should have to develop claws just to survive the night. You can decide that your strength, forged in the dark, will become a wall against the darkness for others. He stood, placing the slate on the table. It displayed images, human medics treating Vex wounded alongside Lyran. Human engineers helping to repair basic life support on captured Vex ships. We did not come for the Lyrans' resources, Vrax. We came because they asked for help. We came because we have made a choice about what our strength is for. You sought to exploit their weakness. We are here to defend it. That is the difference between a predator and a guardian. The major left. Vrax stared at the images on the slate. He saw a human soldier giving a ration pack to a shivering Vex juvenile separated from its brood cluster. The act was so alien, so antithetical to everything Vrax understood about power, that his entire worldview shattered. Conquest was not strength. It was simply the universe's default setting. What the humans had done, the awesome, terrifying power wielded with such precise, compassionate restraint, that was not the universe's way. That was a choice. A choice his species had never even conceived was possible. He had not been defeated by a stronger predator. He had been judged by a higher law. 3 solar cycles later, Lyra Prime was healing. The scars of the brief invasion were being covered over with new growth, assisted by Terran terraforming mycologies that accelerated crystal regeneration. The human fleet remained in orbit, a silent, reassuring presence. But most of the soldiers and engineers had departed, their work done. Only a small liaison team and a medical outpost remained, at the Lyrans' insistent request. In the rebuilt Grand Spire, a ceremony was being held. The Terran ambassador, a diplomatic successor to the military presence, was present. So was Captain Eris Thorn, his curiosity's price repaired and ready to resume its journey. First Bloom stood before her people and the small contingent of humans. Her light marks pulsed a steady warm gold. "We called into the darkness," she chimed, her voice amplified through the spire. "And we feared what might answer. We feared the monsters of our stories. Instead, we discovered a truth far more profound." She turned to Admiral Rostova, who stood in a simple dress uniform, medals gleaming on her chest. "You showed us the duality of strength," First Bloom said. "We saw the hammer that can shatter worlds. And in the very next moment, we saw the same hand, gentle as a sunbeam, mend a broken wing. You have the fury of your deadly world in your blood, yet you wield it with the wisdom of ages. You did not come to conquer. You did not come to replace the Vex as our masters. You came at great cost and with unimaginable power to simply let us be us. To let our song continue." She presented Rostova with a small perfect crystal, grown in the heart of Lyra Prime. Inside, a captured harmonic resonance played the Lyran song of gratitude, a melody that would last 1,000,000 years. "We name you," First Bloom declared, her voice ringing clear, "Chaprolvier in our tongue. It has no direct translation. It means the guardians who choose their burden. The ones who carry the weight of violence, so others may know the weight of a flower." Rostova accepted the crystal, holding it with a reverence usually reserved for sacred relics. When she spoke, her voice held a tremor. "The burden is honor, First Bloom. To hear your song is our reward." Later, as the human ships prepared to depart, Solon found Captain Thorn by his lander. The young Lyran's markings glowed with a new confident pattern. "Captain," Solon said, "I have submitted a request to the Terran Xeno Cultural Exchange. I wish to visit Earth." Eris raised an eyebrow. "It's not what you're used to, Solon. It's loud. It's fast. It can be harsh." "I know," Solon said, his silver eyes bright. "But I must see the world that creates both the storm and the shelter from it. I must understand the choice." Eris nodded, a genuine smile finally touching his lips. He clasped Solon's slender shoulder. "Then you'll be welcome. Bring a good coat. It rains." As the Curiosity's price and the last of the battle group ascended through Lyra's atmosphere, First Bloom and her people gathered in the open, their bioluminescence lighting up the night in a spontaneous, silent farewell. From orbit, the humans could see it, the continents of Lyra Prime softly glowing with the collective light of a grateful civilization. It was more beautiful than any star. On the bridge of the Okinawa, Admiral Rostova watched the glowing world shrink on the viewscreen. Her XO, a seasoned veteran, stood beside her. "A good outcome, Admiral. The accord held." "It did," Rostova murmured. She looked at the crystal First Bloom had given her, now displayed in a secure case. "They think we're guardians. Philosopher warriors. Aren't we?" the XO asked. Rostova was silent for a long moment, watching the stars. "We're a work in progress, Commander. We're the children of a Deathworld who looked up and saw a universe full of silent, beautiful, fragile things. And we decided that just because we knew how to break things, didn't mean we had to. Every time we answer a call like this, we choose to be more than our origins. We choose to be their shield. And in doing so, we remind ourselves of what we're shielding inside our own hearts." The fleet translated into FDL, leaving the Lyran system in peace, surrounded no longer by enemies, but by the enduring memory of an extraordinary choice.